As deadly as the Daughters of Aku are, they have absolutely nothing on the time-traveling samurai in this week's gorgeous, reflective, and bloody episode of Samurai Jack. This is without a shadow of a doubt the best action episode of Samurai Jack, featuring some of the best fighting choreography that I've seen from the series, as well as the bloodiest, as Jack essentially just massacres the Daughters of Aku at the end of this episode, and not only is it incredibly stark, but it also just happens to be very satisfying all at the same time. What I also loved about this episode is that there was still room for actual character development for Jack. We even got to travel back to his past a little bit when he was a child, during a scene where his father was protecting him from some bandits and had no choice but to slay them. This is something that had a massive imprint in Jack's mind and is what is arguably what has been one of his biggest challenges in this brand new story right here, when he has to realize that in order to survive, he's going to have to actually kill a living thing. And this has been a huge debate amongst the fan base of Samurai Jack. Hell, even in my reviews, a lot of people are talking in the comments section that this isn't the first time that Jack has actually killed a human. This episode made it painfully clear that yes, it is. During another one of those scenes where the older version of himself that is still wearing the white robes, sort of like his inner monologue, is still continuing to just eat away at his soul. And in this week's episode, he looks like this extreme, exaggerated version of himself, which I think is a great visual metaphor to show that his mental state has sort of been stretched so thin that he's been transformed into this freaky being. His inner self is basically a visual metaphor for how he feels about actually having to kill a human for the very first time. And this, tied with the flashback about his father, forces him to realize that he is going to have to do this. He might not like it, but it's the only thing he can do to actually survive. And throughout the episode, he's also making friends with this wolf, who might be the same wolf from the last episode. I always just thought it was sort of a visual metaphor for what was going on in that episode, but no, they actually end up being great buddies in this episode and supporting each other to live, and when they finally do heal their wounds, that's when they finally decide to separate and go back to their respective worlds. This is followed by the Daughters of Aku tracking down Jack, going through all of the river and everything that he went through, into the forest, and finally confronting him. And that's when this big battle scene ensues that frankly just blew my damn mind, especially the way that it opened up. And the art style during this scene is so damn good that it hurts. A lot of the time the forest is done in complete white, and you'll still be able to see the characters running behind trees, but everything looks the same color, and it just gives so much to this episode. And it all opens with Jack just taking out one of the daughters with a huge spear, impaling her, then taking out another, and then running through the forest, being chased while standing on this tree, looking like a triumphant badass as the fog clears, and then he decides to take them out, using their own weapons against them, pinning them against trees, with some amazing super fluid choreography with him fighting against all of them at once, the likes of which we've never seen in the series. It just looks fantastic, and it all leads to this epic conclusion where there's only a couple of them left, 3 in particular, and I love how they use this technique where they all stand in front of one another, almost as if they become this one singular being, which again is another great metaphor for these characters because they all constantly work in unison, and they end up looking like this multi-armed assassin with multiple abilities, but Jack still manages to make them look like fools, even when he's at the edge of this log, which is overseeing a cliff. They all fight him one-on-one, with him actually taking one of them and throwing them over the edge, punching the other one, spinning them around so fast that they fall off, and even using this one's own sickle weapon against them to create momentum to fly them both around the log as they fight in midair, only to untie it around his hand as he watches them fall to their death. It is awesome! But of course this is Samurai Jack and we have to end on something of a cliffhanger. It ends with the log breaking and Jack falling into death, seemingly along with his would-be assassins. We'll have to find out what happens next week. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Samurai Jack? Damn this show, man. It's so good. And what I think I loved most about this episode, aside from just the amazing kick-ass action, had to be the art direction. There were so many great shots in this episode. The opening of just watching Jack flow through this cascading river is great to look at. The motion, the different angles that we get, followed by him walking through this forest that's pitch black, and the only way that you can see Jack is through the outline of his body and the glowing red scars all over him. That visual is great, even more so when he takes his hand and puts it on a tree and leaves his handprint. Even better when he goes into this cave, wakes up to see this wolf, and the only thing you can see is blood dripping down his entire face, and then he looks back at the wolf and it's the same image of the wolf's face, the blood dripping down. It's just so damn good. One of the best things about Samurai Jack is that most of its storytelling is done simply through the animation. And this episode, I think, is sort of a testament to that, although I did have to admit it was great getting to see a flashback of his mother and father, and getting to see that things aren't always so happy in Samurai Jack. The viewers weren't allowed to see some of the darker elements of the series back in the day, and by getting to see this great visual of him as a child seeing his father kill people, and even having blood splattered on his face, really does change the character. Big time, especially considering that this entire time he's been killing robots, and now he's been forced to actually kill someone, and the first time he did it was accidental. In this one, it showed how far Jack is willing to go in order to defeat Aku. It almost seems as if before, when he was fighting against robots and other creatures, that he was holding back and having to fight in a completely different way. When he actually fights against a human, it's a lot more dangerous and intense, and he took a lot of risks in this episode, but it paid off. How quick the battle escalated, though, is what really shocked me. The fact that he immediately took out two by impaling them, just seemingly out of nowhere. And that, combined with the amazing artwork of that scene, made it, I think, one of the most iconic moments from the entire series. Woo! This episode right here, man, I can't even praise it enough. It's just so great. The music, the visuals, the storytelling, the character development, which is surprisingly rich at this point in the story, seeing as how we're seeing Jack at his absolute lowest, and I can't wait to see how he's going to survive, and if some of the other daughters of Aku are going to make it out. The preview for the next episode shows that things are going to go in some pretty trippy directions, with Jack seemingly going to some sort of weird mythical place, possibly to reclaim his sword that he lost, and we might even get some answers as to who that mysterious black samurai with the green glowing eyes is, who is still a complete mystery. They still show a few shots of him in this episode, and I still can't wait to see what that reveal is going to be. I've heard a lot of great theories from people saying that this is like Evil Jack or some sort of other opponent that he had to fight against, maybe a possible human that he thought that he might have killed, maybe just a physical manifestation of his like inner hatred, kind of like that weird version of Jack that's constantly talking to him. Just a lot of weird shit that I've heard. I will say though that this episode right here just completely sold me, and considering it didn't even have as much action as the last episode, that's saying a lot. It shows that the series doesn't have to rely simply just on its really stylistic action. As long as it's got some great storytelling to do with some amazing animation, it can go to some great places, and that's why you should be watching Samurai Jack. What else can I say? The series is perfect. I can't recommend it enough. It is without a doubt one of the premier animation events of 2017 that anyone should check out. So, excellent episode again, 5 out of 5. The series continues to do absolutely no wrong and manages to be just absolutely gorgeous, bloody, action-packed, and reflective all at the same time. Check it out, Samurai Jack fans. If any of you did watch it, please tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. I would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. Tell me how you felt about seeing Jack actually kill people for the very first time. What did you think of that big final action scene? Where is Jack going in the next episode? And what do you want to see from the rest of this season of Samurai Jack? Thank you guys again for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things Samurai Jack related and other anime reviews. Make sure to leave me a comment. I'd love to talk with you guys about this week's episode. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. You didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. I will see you guys next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.